Good morning. There are many things which can destroy our faith. Due to Watchtower's behaviour, some ex-Jehovah's Witnesses have lost their faith completely, even in God, despite what it says in Romans 1:20, that God's qualities are clearly seen from the things that he has made, and I'll come back to that at the end of this video. Then we have scientists who sometimes will say they've dug up human remains of people who died 50,000 years ago, when we know that the Bible says we've only been here roughly 6,000 years. How do they date these things? Well, it's quite clever. They use carbon dating. Now, carbon is a most useful element. In its pure form, we get diamonds. Mixed with other things, we get seashells. Vegetation will use it to provide us with food. We eat the vegetation, so by the time we're adults, we've got about 10 kilos of carbon in us. Now, ordinary carbon, and I'm not doing this to scale, and I hope they don't fall off the plate. Ordinary carbon in its nucleus has 6 protons and 6 neutrons. Very stable. And if we die, then the carbon will stay the same. It won't change. It will still be carbon 100,000 years from now. However, a tiny proportion of all carbon atoms is carbon-14. What's that? Well, here you have carbon-12. Carbon-14 has an extra 2 neutrons. It's caused by radiation from the sun or whatever. Now, over time, it will decay. One of the neutrons will become a proton. So you've now got 7 protons, 7 neutrons. It's not carbon anymore, it's nitrogen. So the carbon has dissipated, the carbon-14 that is. It's decayed, it's gone. Now, it takes a long time for carbon-14 atoms to do this, and it takes 5,730 years for half of the carbon-14 in a dead animal to decay. So if a scientist comes along, digs up a human or an animal, and it's only got half the carbon-14 in it, which it should have, then it died 5,730 years ago. I'm going to call it 6,000 years for ease of mathematics. So if something's only got a quarter of the carbon-14 in it that it should have, then it died 12,000 years ago. And so it goes down until basically when you get to 40 or 50,000 years ago, if something died, it won't have any carbon-14 in it at all. Now, scientists make an assumption with this dating, which you're not supposed really to do, but it's a good guess. And they're guessing that carbon-14 has always been the same in the atmosphere the last 50,000 years. But supposing it wasn't. Supposing before the flood there was better radiation coverage for this planet. Supposing before the flood there wasn't any carbon-14 in the atmosphere. So Methuselah, who died nearly 5,000 years ago, and a scientist comes along today, digs him up, tests the remains, and if it hasn't got any carbon-14 in it, then the scientists will say these remains died 50,000 years ago, when in actual fact they might only have died 5,000 years ago. Scientists don't believe in the flood, but as Christians we do, and it was a cataclysm. It caused huge upheaval. The rocks were all tumbled about all over the place. Now, scientists will take into account the upheaval of rocks and what have you, which they also use for dating, but they don't make allowances for a global flood, which we as Christians do. So, I don't allow any scientific findings claiming that humans were here hundreds of thousands of years ago to bother me at all. I have great faith in the scriptures. Now, if we have any doubt whatsoever as to God's intelligence and his engineering abilities and his eye for design and beautiful things that he has made, you might like to watch the following clips, bearing in mind Romans 1:20, that we can see his qualities from the things that he has made. I hope you followed today's video. I will leave you in the loving care of our dear Father, and God bless you all. It seems that bumblebees should not be able to fly. They have small wings for their body weight, but they do fly. It appears that they use a mode of flight which is very different from aeroplanes or helicopters. They use a technology we haven't been able to copy as yet. Their wings are at a higher angle, which creates vortices, giving them lift. Now, amazingly, it seems that they can carry up to 90% of their body weight, and then they can use, if they want, an economical mode of flight which uses less energy. But we don't really understand how this happens as yet. I'll try and leave a link to this information below. Whatever it is, bumblebees are essential for our lives and one of the most amazing creations of our dear Father.